Alright, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the service publications. There's a lot of people out there who can just like look at something, turn a wrench, and like fix something just by looking at it. Everybody like strives to be that hands-on learner as far as say you have a lawnmower at home that won't run, you start tinkering with it, you find out it doesn't have spark, you put a coil on it, you get it to run. That's all well and good. If you can do that, then you're doing pretty good. But cars are a little bit more sophisticated than your average bicycle or run-of-the-mill lawnmower. So, in many years of experience working on vehicles, I pretty much go to a service publication pretty much always if I have to work on anything major. One of the benefits of service publications is like a part of actually telling you how to do something or how to diagnose something is that it has handy information like the different types of tools that are available out there, like special tools for taking something apart or putting it together. Also, there's safety warnings in there. Please don't take this bolt out because this spring can fly out and take your eye out. There's all kinds of things in there you have to be concerned with. So I'm just going to kind of do a little history lesson and show you what we used to be like back when I was starting out as a tech, when I was like around your age, maybe a little bit older. And we're going to kind of like walk into what you just ended up learning when you did that Ford School for the Technician Resources. So anyway, just to kind of give you like a little walk-through history lesson of the way it was back when I first started out, we didn't have computers. We had computers, but they were really crappy, really slow, and they were only good for like storage of like small amounts of data. If we wanted to like have any kind of like real thing, we would buy something like this, which is like a CD, but it wasn't quite this sophisticated yet. Back in my day, we would have what's called a floppy disk. You ever hear of a floppy disk at your young ages? They looked square like this. They had a little bit of a, basically they had like a little like floppy CD in it that was rewritable. And we would slide them into a disk drive, and it would make a bunch of noise, and it was really slow. And we would get our information that way. Even before that, we would have to like have entire libraries inside of our dealerships dedicated to different types of cars. So, like for example, I'm a Ford Master Technician. At my Ford dealership I walk into, there was a room pretty close to like the size of this classroom. And it was literally shelves upon shelves upon shelves of books. So when we would go through and we'd work on a certain car, we'd have to find volumes of certain books. So to give you an example, we've had some donated. This is one car. Okay, this is a 2000 Chrysler Concorde LHS 300M. There's literally 4 books here. There's probably a 5th one I couldn't find that's even thicker than just these 3 put together. But it has a separate book for powertrain, transmission, body, and somewhere along the line, diagnostic procedures. But somewhere along the line, if they find errors in this book, they'll put out another copy of ways of correcting all the errors in the book. So if I was working at a Chrysler dealer, and I was working on this particular car, I would go back and have to find this year. They all were color-coded by different colors. If I knew it was a 2000, I'd just go to the orange books, I'd look for these books, and then find the particular book for the thing I was working on. And then, from there, we'd have to be able to navigate through these books and find out what is this information that we're needing to find to actually work on the car. And then, the dealership would get really mad if you got your pages greasy, so you have to take some time cleaning yourself up. And then you'd walk over, put this on your workbench, and you would actually open it to that page, and you would follow step-by-step instructions in here without touching the pages with your dirty hands. So as you guys can tell, it was not very fun. To make matters even worse, when you start getting into the heavy-duty diagnosis of like electrical or electronic concerns, when they started coming up in the early days of electronics, there was a lot of information that was available for diagnosing that kind of things. And without a computer, you would just have to imagine that you get a book this size. This is for a 2000 Mazda MPV minivan. This is just to diagnose the computer systems in it. And we would actually spend time, we'd pull the codes out of the car, find the code in the book, and there's an algorithm for each of the codes you get in there. You'd have to follow step-by-step algorithms to figure out what was wrong with the car. So again, you have all this information you got to go through just to try to figure out what's wrong with the car. Well, you might ask, what do you do if you don't work at a dealership and you're just an independent garage, right? Because you're not going to have all these good dealership books that have all this information. There was a couple of good companies back in the day. One was Motors. One was Chilton's. One was Mitchell. Those three companies were the big ones. And I'm going to explain a little bit later how Mitchell turned into what we actually use for Shopkey. But Chilton's, this is one book that contains probably enough information in it to like get you by to do a repair or whatever, but it wasn't very dealership friendly as far as being able to like pull the data you need. Like the dealership will give you every little piece of data that was ever designed for that particular car to fix that car. They don't have to share that information. The companies like Chilton's, they would go to like say Ford, and they would say, hey, we need information on this particular car doing this particular job, what can you give me? They'd be very vague about what they turned out and let them publish in these books because there was no laws that said they had to like tell you everything. Because they still wanted you to go to the dealership as a customer and pay the dealership to do the work and not be undercut by the little guy. So the little guy can do things like brakes or maybe change an axle or something. But if you came down to like diagnosing a transmission problem on a newer car, unless you had somebody that really, really understood transmissions, they won't be able to do it with these aftermarket books. They'd have to go get the Ford manuals and actually, go through that information that way. But as you can imagine, this one here goes 1987 to 1991. I believe this one here is U.S. and Canadian models. Okay, so if it's like a Nissan or something, it wouldn't be listed in here. But you have 5 years of cars, every make, model, and year within the 5 years of Canadian and American cars in this little book. So you can imagine comparing the two. This is one or three cars that Chrysler made. This is everything domestic from those 5 years. You can just see by the size of these books how much more information you got from the factory manuals than you would from like an aftermarket book. Okay. So as time went on, we needed things like wiring diagrams. These books here, these factory books, they had a separate book that was dedicated solely to wiring diagrams. Okay? If you had, like say one of these books, like your Chilton's books, you would go through, and if you were working on, say, like a window that won't work, like a window motor doesn't work, you would see a very rudimentary wiring diagram that would pop up in here. If you were working on something like a computer system and it's not communicating, you may not even find that information in this book. It might not even let you know that stuff. So back in the day, as a consumer, you would get stuck taking your car to the dealership if the mom and pop didn't have the information that was needed to figure it out. So, along with that and workshop manuals, you had your powertrain emissions manuals. That's these, okay? So far there's 3 different types of books you need. And then on top of that, you're going to need to know about service, labor, time standards. Probably later this week, we're going to get into talking about doing estimates. And part of doing estimates is knowing how much to charge for the labor, right? So you might be able to take something apart and have it apart and together in a half an hour. He might take an hour. This person over there might take 10 minutes. But what do you know as far as like what a fair price to charge your customer is? If that guy can do it in 10 minutes at $25 an hour, and this guy can do it in a half an hour for $25 an hour, this guy might do the same job cheaper than this guy if he charged just about the amount of time they have in it. So what they did in the industry is they standardized the amount of time that you can charge for each particular job. And what they did was they performed these things called time studies. All right. So what they'd find is like somebody like me, somebody else like me, somebody else like me, somebody else like me, and I don't know how many people they use for a sampling, but they would actually say, I want all you guys to do a brake job on a 1995 Cavalier, and I want you to clock yourself of how long it takes you from the time you touch the car with a wrench to the time you are done working on the car and get ready to pull it out of the shop, and write that amount of time down. So now all these technicians would mail all this information into these companies, like Mitchell or Motors or whatever, and they would compile what's called service labor time standards. So that all the average time, let's say they sampled 50 technicians, they would take all 50 technicians' time, and then they would divide that by the amount of the 50 or whatever. They add it all up and divide it by 50, and they come up with a fair amount of time to charge. Okay, so service labor time standards are basically books that contain the average amount of time it takes to complete any job. Okay, so there was a whole other set of books you had to have in order to like have a shop. So you literally had a library. Like, you wouldn't think that, you'd think your tool room was probably about your biggest area to store things in, but you had to have an equal amount of books in there if you actually perform work on like many different vehicles. So I'm going to leave all the books I have sitting up here for you guys to come peek through whenever I'm done talking. Pick them up, take a look through them or whatever, but we're going to probably pass out these estimating guides before we start talking about creating estimates, let you just kind of like look through them to see how the things are. It's a little confusing if you don't know how they work, but it's a necessary thing because when you start working for somebody, a lot of times your bosses have buddies that they want to help out, putting help out in air quotes, because what happens is their buddy comes in and say this book says it takes an hour to do something, but your boss knows you quite well. Your boss knows you can do it in a half an hour. He'll charge his buddy a half hour worth of labor instead of charging the whole hour that you're owed. So basically he's shorting you out a half hour worth of labor just to help his friend out. So I'm teaching this so that it helps you guys keep from getting screwed over on a job. Okay. So paper books became kind of a thing of the past as computers started to kind of evolve. Probably around 94, 95, way before you guys were born, the internet started like really blowing up. We had dial-up service. We had to take our phone line, plug it into our computer, and it would go beep, 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 beep. It would sit there and make all kinds of racket and shit. And it depended on how fast your phone lines were. So if you had like really slow phone service, your internet was super, super slow. You know how you guys stream stuff? Back in the infancy of internet, if you tried to stream something on the internet, you had to wait for like say a 5-minute movie clip, just like a 5-minute like short video. You had to wait like 20 minutes for it to download onto your computer before you could even watch it. It was horribly slow. Okay, so we still kind of teeter-totter back and forth between using our books, and if we had tried to find something as an online source, it was almost not worth our time to look. So companies would come up with, like I showed you before, these DVDs, okay? You used to be able to buy like an aftermarket set of Mitchell or Motors or whatever on DVDs. You buy the whole series, it would cost you a ridiculous amount of money. And you would use those, much like we currently use our internet. There'd be whole volumes of CDs, and then you'd have to like load and go through to find the stuff you're looking for. This is a Chrysler CD. So we'd have a computer at our dealership then, and we have these CDs to stick in the player, and we'd actually be able to look up our information that way. And we had a printer, so like if you wanted to go out to your car to work on something, you literally had to load one of these CDs, find the information you wanted, print it off on the printer, then walk out to your car and work on the car. So that probably took you about a good 10-15 minutes of time suck in order to have the information you need. You probably should go on all fours before you kill yourself. Yeah. Good job. But it took a long time. So in our business, time is money, okay? And as we're about to talk about in the future, we don't get paid by the hour. We get paid usually by flat rate, and I'll explain what that is like within this next week. So anything like this that we'd have to take and waste time on, we never got paid for. We did that free, okay? So time went a little bit further in the future. Internet got faster. We got to the point where we can start looking things up on internet. YouTube became a thing, which was nice. And then these companies that produce these discs, like ShopKey, Mitchell On Demand, Pro Demand. There's like a bunch of different companies out there that provide this information to us, but they all started like coming up with online things, okay? And as you've seen when you did your Ford assignment, Ford is pretty much 100% online now, so everything you need to work on a Ford is on a computer. So you can easily, even if you have your login and you have your phone in your pocket, you can pull up the service information on your phone and take it to the vehicle, and you can just use your phone. So modern days are so much nicer than it was back in the day. Now there's times like now that I will actually pull stuff up on our ShopKey program and I will print them out, because I'd still much rather have it on paper that I can walk out to the car, check things off, circle things, highlight things, you know, all those little, you know, things that if you are a paper handler like I am, you kind of need that physical piece of paper in your hand. I still print the stuff out. So all this information about that I just gave you is leading up to something, okay? It's leading up to that ShopKey program that I was talking about, that I had you guys do a Meet ShopKey Pro, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. Our ShopKey is the same. This has been for probably since I started teaching 15 years ago. I have the same login. And what's nice about this is you can access this from your house and you can actually use this at home, okay? Provided you're within the range of our URL here. I used it once in Florida. They kind of like put a stop on my account because they thought that, you know, it was being stolen. Really, I was using the account we paid for, but it seems to be like, as long as you use it within like say Connellsville, Uniontown, within like a 50-mile radius of the school, you'd be good, okay? We can have 40 people logged onto it at the same time. And if you ever want the information on how to log into it, I have a sign up here. I have one also in my office. So I would highly advise on your own time, get your phone out, take a picture of that, that way you have that, okay? So I'm just going to start typing ShopKey. I've used it so many times, Google already knows what I'm doing. So I can just go like this, touch it, bring it up. And my stuff's remembered, so as soon as it loads, I can hit login. And then it remembered me. And we're on. The entire time you're here, this is your go-to, all right? I want you to get to know it quite well, because what happens is, if you're doing an oil change, this will tell you how much oil to put in the car. If you're trying to put air in the tires, this will tell you that. If you're trying to tighten up lug nuts, it'll tell you that. If you're trying to change a transmission, it'll tell you that. If you're trying to diagnose a check engine light, it'll tell you how to do that. If you're looking for anything that's located in any of these books I showed you, it's all located right there in that one spot. I can't tell you the exact amount that we pay for it every year, but because we have 40 licenses that we use like at a revolving scale, it's pretty pricey for the school. But if you guys would happen to like start your own businesses after you graduate, I would highly recommend spending I think the basic is like $500 a year, but it's totally worth the $500 a year. This replaces every single book under the sun. And here I can prove it. This thing goes the whole way up to 2025. It's not even 2025 yet. But we can work on 2025 vehicles because that's what's being produced right now. Now there's probably not that much information in there. Let's just go with like a Silverado 6.2. Okay, there's the information. Basically, it doesn't know half the stuff about this car. I'm just curious to see what information it actually does have. Okay, so everything that's kind of grayed out on that screen right now, that's stuff that right now, since it's such a new car, Chevy doesn't have to share that information with anybody. What ShopKey does is they'll go to like the different manufacturers and they'll say, hey, can I have all your database from like a certain model car? And they'll say, yeah, okay, well, we'll charge you like this many thousands of dollars to share that information. This is such a new vehicle, there's actually espionage, if you know what that term means, happening between the different car manufacturers. So like say Ford will spy on Chevy, Chevy will spy on Chrysler. They'll basically spy on each other, then they'll steal each other's technology and they'll use it and claim it as their own. So they don't share a whole lot of this, what's called proprietary data, until the car has been like 5 or 6 years old. After a car is like 2 years old, they can actually literally go buy each other's brand new cars and they can reverse engineer it, figure out what makes it tick, and they can steal each other's technology that way. But for now, they're not sharing much with us. But what they are sharing with us is the important stuff. If we're changing the oil, we're going to want to know about the fluid capacities. If we want to look up technical service bulletins, hey, it's under warranty though. We find a bulletin that says like, oh, this car is doing this for this reason, here's how you fix it. The customer, you can tell the customer, hey, take it to the Chevy dealer, they can do this technical bulletin. But they actually do share some service manual stuff here. But even if I was changing my oil, I can click fluid capacities. By the way, this is information that's available in the glove box of the car. You can literally like look it up. Okay, but it tells you basically all your fluids, all your capacities and stuff, because they know people are going to buy a brand new 2025, and they're probably going to change their own oil and stuff, and do their own like maintenance type stuff. So they want to make sure that information's out there, because they don't want people out there putting the wrong stuff in their cars and making a mess. If you put the wrong brake fluid in something, it makes jelly, like literally jelly. Messes your whole brake system up. So like they don't want you to make accidents like that with their brand new cars. Even if I was going to go back, and hit the service manual, they're probably not going to give us a lot of data in here, but they give us quick lookups, technical bulletins, some electrical stuff, some engine performance stuff, and some general information. Now keep that in mind. You're looking at that screen, you see this a few little things on that tab, right? So I'm going to change vehicle, go under vehicle selection. I'm going to get something older. 2001 Ford. Alright, so older cars, they give us a lot more information because they share that kind of information. As a matter of fact, once a car is 10 years old, they call it public domain. Just like, you know, how you get some of the old music, newer music, they can kind of get you if you try to like sing somebody else's songs or play somebody else's songs. Once it's so old, then you can like just take it because it becomes public domain. It's the same thing with information for cars. So once a car hits a certain age, they don't care about sharing the information, because by that time all the proprietary data has been shared and stolen and all that good stuff. But all these different tabs are very, very helpful to you. This isn't a service manual part of it, but if I want to go in, even my menu's changed. If I go back to the home screen, you notice all that's lit up in dark now. None of that's grayed out, so you have all that information available to you now. You're all starting out, so you're all new, so you're not really going to get that deep into all these tabs right off the bat. But the things that are really important to you are the fluid capacities, the reset procedures. You know how the newer cars have that little light that comes on that says your tires are low? That reset procedure is right there. So if you're like at home and say mom's cars has a light come on, you might be able to like actually just reset her light from home, or at least say, hey, we have to go for a ride for 20 miles an hour for 5 miles to reset the light. Oil light, change your own oil at home, and you have that little oil light that pops up, and you're sitting there. There's all these bells and whistles, and you just can't figure out which buttons to push. That tells you how to do that. These technical bulletins that you can get are actually really handy too, because like say for example you're having a problem with your transmission. You can go under transmission. Oh look, I have an extended 1 to 2 upshift. You can pull that up and it will tell you like what you would do to fix it. Okay, so it does give you nice information there. But this bulletin, the way it's written, actually came from Ford Motor Company. Everything you're seeing on that screen is Ford Motor Company. I can look up something that's a Chevy, and you'll actually get a document that's produced by Chevy. So it's kind of nice because you're seeing the same stuff that they see at the dealership. So backpedaling a little further, going back to that technician resources thing you guys did, all this information that you're seeing on this screen right now is also available just as you're seeing it on there. If you actually go work at a Ford dealer and you use their actual, I forget what they call it now with stars before, but they have an online system for their technicians to go in and pull up all the service data. So you're seeing the same thing. So as far as today's class goes, I just wanted to cover like the different types of like books and things and give you a little history lesson and how we came that we can actually like look stuff up online now and show you this program because this is what we're going to be using for the next 4 years. So I need you to get comfortable using it and I need you to become experts at it. Tomorrow when you come in, we're going to talk about things like just basic 101, how to write an estimate, how to like actually like write the lines properly as far as to articulate what's wrong with the car, the different parts of repair orders, and a lot of associated stuff to that. And then we're going to get into actually writing estimates and figuring out types of pay and all that math that's involved with that. And then we'll wind down from that. And then I haven't quite done it yet, but I am planning on making some kind of a worksheet that you could go out and like pull information off of my cars out in the shop, get you out of the classroom for a day. And then from there, we'll just keep moving on to like tools and equipment and things like that. So is there any questions about what we went over today? No? Okay. Well, with that said, we are done.